My ex-wife filed for divorce thinking I was a broke veteran. She had no idea I spent my deployment investing in tech and was worth millions. I came home from Afghanistan in 2021 with a secret. While my unit was stationed in Kandahar, I'd invested every cent of my combat pay in cryptocurrency. Bitcoin was trading under $200 back then. My army buddy Terrell laughed when I told him, "You're throwing your money away on internet coins," he said between missions. "Buy something real instead." I didn't listen. I kept buying more whenever I could. By the time my deployment ended, I had accumulated a substantial portfolio. I never told my wife Kendra about it. We'd been married for 3 years when I returned home. Kendra believed I was struggling to find work. She complained about my unemployability to her friends on the phone. I let her think that. Every morning at 6 a.m., I checked my investment portfolio while she slept. My initial investments had multiplied beyond anything I could have imagined. I maintained the facade of poverty while secretly managing millions. We lived in a cramped apartment. I drove a 2006 Honda Civic with peeling paint. Kendra worked as an administrative assistant and believed she was the breadwinner. I played the part of the struggling veteran perfectly. Last month, she served me with divorce papers. She seemed almost gleeful when she handed them to me across our kitchen table. I wasn't surprised. Our marriage had been cooling for months. "I think we both know this isn't working," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I want a clean break." I nodded and accepted the papers. What shocked me wasn't the divorce itself, but what came next. Kendra had hired Patricia Vasquez, an attorney who specialized in high net worth divorces and charged $500 an hour minimum. It made no sense. Based on what Kendra knew about our finances, we had nothing worth fighting over. Maybe $3,000 in my checking account, a used car, some furniture from IKEA. When I asked how she could afford Patricia, Kendra claimed her sister Rita was helping her. Rita was a teacher with 3 kids. The math didn't add up. I received the first set of financial discovery requests 3 days later. Patricia wanted detailed information about all my accounts going back 5 years. Bank statements, investment records, retirement funds, cryptocurrency wallets, everything. The level of detail they requested was suspicious. Kendra had never shown interest in finances before. Now she wanted to know about accounts I'd never mentioned to her. I met with Kendra for coffee to discuss the divorce terms. She seemed distracted, checking her phone constantly. When I asked what she wanted from the settlement, her answer surprised me. "I don't need alimony," she said, stirring her latte. "I just want us to split whatever assets we have and move on quickly." This was completely out of character. Kendra had always complained about money. She'd talked about alimony before when threatening divorce during arguments. Now she was suddenly willing to walk away with almost nothing? Something wasn't right. I agreed to her terms while watching her carefully. She seemed disappointed by my easy acceptance. That evening, I received an email from Patricia demanding access to my tax returns from the years I was deployed. The request specifically mentioned any investments made during that period. My suspicions grew stronger. I called Kendra's sister Rita the next day. She seemed confused when I thanked her for helping with Kendra's legal fees. She had no idea what I was talking about. She hadn't given Kendra any money. The pieces started coming together. Someone was funding Kendra's expensive lawyer. Someone was telling her what financial information to look for. Someone suspected I had hidden assets. I decided to play along. I responded to Patricia's requests with minimal information. I claimed to have only my military pension and the small checking account. I mentioned nothing about my cryptocurrency or other investments. Last Tuesday, Kendra said she had a meeting with Patricia downtown. I followed her at a distance. She didn't go to the financial district where Patricia's office was located. Instead, she went to a business building in another part of town. I watched from a coffee shop across the street as she met with a man in an expensive charcoal suit. They sat at a conference table visible through the windows. The man spread documents and spreadsheets between them. His name was Reed. I learned that later. What I saw that day was Kendra's face changing as she reviewed whatever he was showing her. She looked shocked at first, then calculating. She borrowed Reed's phone to make a call that lasted exactly 3 minutes. They talked for 10 more minutes after her call. When she left the building, she looked different, more determined, more focused. That night, Kendra asked me directly about any accounts I might have forgotten to mention. She watched my reaction carefully. I denied having anything significant. "Are you sure?" she pressed. "No investments from your deployment? No savings accounts I don't know about?" I shook my head and changed the subject. The next morning, I received an alert from my trading platform. Someone had attempted to access my account. The login attempt failed because of my 2-factor authentication. The attempt had come from an unknown IP address. I immediately changed all my passwords and security questions. My suspicions were now confirmed. Kendra knew something. 2 days later, Desmond from Charles Schwab called me. Someone claiming to be my wife had made inquiries about my accounts. Fortunately, Desmond had followed protocol and verified nothing. I needed to act quickly. Kendra had discovered my secret wealth and was trying to claim half of it in our divorce. The question was, how much did she know and who was helping her find it? I hired a private investigator the next morning. Victor came highly recommended by a military buddy. He'd been a detective for 20 years before starting his own firm. We met at a diner away from my neighborhood. "Someone's helping your wife dig into your finances," he said after hearing my story. "This Reed character is likely a forensic accountant." I slid an envelope across the table with $5,000 cash inside. Victor didn't count it. He just nodded and asked for Kendra's schedule and photos. "I need to know who she's meeting and what they're looking for," I said. Something doesn't add up. Victor started surveillance that afternoon. He texted me updates throughout the day. Kendra went to work as usual. She had lunch with her sister Rita. Nothing suspicious until later. 2 days into the investigation, Victor called me. His voice was urgent. Your wife is meeting with Reed again, he said. Same office building downtown. Looks like they're reviewing documents. I asked Victor to send photos. He texted me several clear shots of Kendra and Reed sitting at the conference table. Reed was pointing to something on a laptop screen. Kendra looked intensely focused. I decided to see for myself. I told Kendra I had a job interview and would be gone all afternoon. She seemed distracted, barely acknowledging me as I left. I parked a block away from the office building and waited. 3 hours later, Kendra emerged with Reed. They stood talking on the sidewalk for several minutes. Reed handed her a USB drive that she quickly tucked into her purse. Their body language changed when a third person approached. A woman in a tailored suit who I recognized immediately as Patricia Vasquez. The three of them had what appeared to be a tense conversation. Patricia looked angry. She kept gesturing at the building they'd just left. Reed remained calm, showing her something on his phone. Kendra stayed silent, watching both of them. I took several photos with my phone. The meeting broke up after 15 minutes. Kendra left in a taxi. Patricia and Reed continued talking before heading back inside together. When I got home that evening, Kendra was already there. She had made dinner, something she rarely did. She seemed nervous, dropping a glass while setting the table. "How was your day?" she asked too casually. "Any luck with the job interview?" I kept my answers vague. Throughout dinner, she kept steering the conversation toward money. She asked if I'd considered cashing out my military pension. She mentioned a friend whose husband had secret accounts from before their marriage. "You would tell me if you had assets I didn't know about, right?" she asked. "It would be better for both of us to be honest during the divorce." I nodded and changed the subject. After dinner, I noticed her scrolling through her phone, looking at what appeared to be bank websites. She quickly switched screens when I walked past. That night, I waited until she fell asleep. I checked my investment accounts from my laptop. My cryptocurrency holdings had grown to $2.3 million. My total portfolio was worth over $4.2 million. I also checked my account activity logs. Someone had attempted to access my Coinbase wallet 3 times in the past week. The attempts came from an IP address I didn't recognize. I called Victor at 6 a.m. the next morning. He agreed to trace the IP address. By noon, he had confirmation. The login attempts came from Kendra's workplace. "She's definitely hunting for your money," Victor said. "But how did she find out about it in the first place?" I wondered the same thing. I'd been careful. No paper statements, different passwords for everything, 2-factor authentication on all accounts. Then I remembered something from years ago. During my deployment, I'd emailed Kendra about investing in Bitcoin. She had dismissed the idea completely. I'd sent her links to articles about cryptocurrency's potential. Those emails would still exist in her account. They wouldn't reveal how much I'd invested, but they would show my interest. It was enough of a breadcrumb for someone who knew what to look for. Victor called again that afternoon with more news. He'd followed Reed to his office and discovered his full name, Reed Thornton. He was indeed a forensic accountant who specialized in finding hidden assets during divorces. "He's good at what he does," Victor said. "He once found $10 million a husband had hidden in offshore accounts. He gets a percentage of whatever he finds." Everything suddenly made sense. Kendra had hired Reed to find my money. Patricia was the legal muscle to force me to disclose it in court. They were working together to take half my cryptocurrency. The next morning, I received another call, this time from Desmond at Charles Schwab. Someone claiming to be my wife had called asking about my accounts. They'd tried to reset my password using personal information. "I didn't verify anything," Desmond assured me, "but they knew a lot about you. Your military service dates, your mother's maiden name, even your first address after deployment." I thanked him and hung up. My suspicions were now confirmed beyond any doubt. Kendra knew about my wealth. She was actively trying to gain access to my accounts before the divorce was finalized. I needed to act quickly. I called a law firm that specialized in high-asset divorces. I needed protection immediately. The game had changed completely. Desmond called me again the next morning. His voice sounded tense. "Someone claiming to be your wife just tried to access your accounts again," he said. "They had your social security number and date of birth." I shut it down immediately. I thanked him for his vigilance. This was getting serious. Kendra was escalating her attempts to access my money before the divorce was finalized. "I need to put extra security measures on all my accounts," I told him. "No changes or withdrawals without in-person verification." Desmond agreed to lock everything down. I hung up and immediately called Marissa, the attorney Victor had recommended. Her office scheduled me for an emergency consultation that afternoon. I spent the morning documenting every suspicious incident, the login attempts, Kendra's meetings with Reed, the financial discovery requests that seemed too specific. Everything pointed to a coordinated effort to uncover my hidden wealth. Marissa's office was in a sleek downtown building. She had 20 years of experience in high-asset divorces. Her handshake was firm as she welcomed me into her office. "So your soon-to-be ex-wife discovered your cryptocurrency holdings," she said after I explained everything. "And now she's trying to gain access before the divorce is finalized." I nodded. Marissa's expression remained neutral, but I could tell she was calculating strategies. "We need to move quickly," she said. "First, we secure your assets, then we prepare for the confrontation that's coming." I signed the retainer agreement on the spot. Marissa called her paralegal to begin preparing emergency filings to protect my assets during the divorce proceedings. "Don't confront Kendra yet," Marissa advised. "Let's gather more evidence of what she's doing." I ignored her advice. I was furious. When I got home that evening, Kendra was in the kitchen making dinner again. Her fake domesticity only made me angrier. "How was your day?" she asked with that same forced casualness. "Any luck with job hunting?" I set my phone on the counter, recording our conversation. I'd had enough of the charade. "Why don't you tell me about Reed Thornton?" I asked. Kendra froze. The wooden spoon she was holding clattered against the pot. Her expression shifted from shock to calculation in seconds. "Who?" she attempted. but her voice cracked. I pulled out the photos Victor had taken. Kendra with Reed, Kendra with Patricia, the three of them, talking outside the office building. The forensic accountant you hired to find my Bitcoin, I said, the one who's getting a percentage of whatever he finds. Kendra's facade crumbled. She sat down heavily at the kitchen table. For several moments, she said nothing. How did you know? She finally asked. You weren't as clever as you thought, I said. Your sister never gave you money for Patricia's retainer. The login attempts came from your work IP address. Desmond at Charles Schwab reported your calls. Kendra's eyes narrowed. She seemed to be recalculating her position. Reed found your early Bitcoin purchases, she admitted. He traced transactions from when you were deployed. You mentioned cryptocurrency in emails back then. I remained silent, letting her continue. He estimated you had at least $1 million hidden, she said. Patricia said I was entitled to half of everything, regardless of when you acquired it. The pieces clicked into place. Reed had found traces of my early investments but didn't know their current value. He'd underestimated significantly. And the plan was to hide this from the court? I asked. To access my accounts before disclosing them in the divorce? Kendra looked away. Her guilt was obvious. Patricia suggested we could negotiate a better settlement if we knew what you were hiding, she said defensively. You were the one keeping secrets. I laughed without humor. The hypocrisy was stunning. So your lawyer advised you to commit financial fraud, I said. That's what this is, Kendra. Fraud. The doorbell rang. Kendra jumped, looking panicked. I walked to the door and opened it. Connor, my financial advisor, stood there with a thick portfolio binder. Right on time, I said, inviting him in. Connor entered and nodded professionally to Kendra. He'd been managing my investments for years, creating the legitimate paper trail that would protect me now. I've brought the complete investment history as requested, he told me, loud enough for Kendra to hear. All transactions properly reported to the IRS. All capital gains taxes paid in full. Kendra's face paled. She suddenly understood what was happening. Your scheme just backfired, I told her. I have documented evidence of your attempts to commit fraud during our divorce proceedings. Your lawyer advised you to hide information from the court. Connor opened the binder on the table. Inside were statements showing my complete financial history, every Bitcoin purchase, every stock trade, every tax return. My investments were always legitimate, I said. I just didn't tell you about them because you never showed interest in our finances. That's not illegal. Kendra stared at the documentation, her plan crumbling before her eyes. What happens now? She whispered. Now we proceed with the divorce, I said, but with complete financial disclosure on both sides, and with the court aware of your attempted fraud. Connor excused himself after leaving the binder. Kendra remained at the table, stunned into silence. Her phone buzzed repeatedly with messages from Patricia, but she didn't answer. You could have just asked me, I said quietly. Instead, you tried to steal from me. Kendra finally looked up. The calculation was gone from her eyes, replaced by defeat. I didn't think you'd agree to split it, she said. You always seemed so secretive about money. I shook my head. The irony wasn't lost on me. I would have been fair, I told her. Now, Marissa will handle everything. I suggest you find a new attorney. Patricia's advice has put you in legal jeopardy. Kendra gathered her purse and keys. She paused at the door. How much is it actually worth? She asked. The Bitcoin. I considered not telling her, but the truth would come out in the financial disclosures anyway. $2.3 million, I said. Total portfolio just over $4.2 million. Kendra's eyes widened. Reed had underestimated by millions. She left without another word. The magnitude of her failed scheme finally clear to her. I called Marissa immediately after. The confrontation had gone exactly as I'd planned. Now it was time to let the legal system handle the rest. The judge reviewed the evidence of Kendra's fraud attempt with visible disgust. Patricia sat stiffly beside her client, avoiding eye contact with everyone in the courtroom. The documentation I'd provided was damning. Mrs. Walsh, these allegations are extremely serious, the judge said. Attempting to access financial accounts fraudulently during divorce proceedings is potentially criminal. Kendra stared at the floor. She hadn't expected this outcome when she hired Reed to hunt for my money. The plan had backfired spectacularly. Patricia stood up and cleared her throat. Your Honor, I need to withdraw as counsel for Mrs. Walsh effective immediately. The judge nodded, unsurprised. Patricia gathered her papers quickly and exited the courtroom without looking back at Kendra. Even expensive divorce attorneys had ethical boundaries they wouldn't cross. Marissa presented our settlement offer. Kendra would receive only what I'd initially proposed, the furniture she'd picked out and $10,000 to help with moving expenses, nothing more. Given the circumstances, this is extremely generous, Marissa told the court. My client could pursue criminal charges but is choosing not to. The judge turned to Kendra, who sat alone at her table. Mrs. Walsh, do you understand the position you're in? Kendra nodded slowly. Her eyes were red-rimmed. I accept the terms. The divorce was finalized that afternoon. I felt nothing but relief as I walked out of the courthouse. The secret I'd maintained for years was finally in the open, but on my terms. 2 weeks later, I met Terrell for lunch. My old army buddy looked worn down, his once confident demeanor replaced by something more desperate. He'd lost his job 6 months earlier and was struggling to make ends meet. Should have listened to you about those internet coins, he said, attempting to joke. Guess you were right after all. I nodded and sipped my water. It wasn't just luck, Terrell. I did my research. We talked about old times for a while. Kandahar seemed like a lifetime ago. Eventually, I slid an envelope across the table containing information about my new project. I'm starting a foundation, I explained, teaching veterans about investing, cryptocurrency, financial literacy. I could use someone who knows military culture. Terrell opened the envelope and his eyes widened at the salary figure. You serious about this? I nodded, dead serious. What happened to me shouldn't be rare. Veterans deserve financial security. The following month, I closed on my dream house, a modern cabin on 5 acres outside the city. I'd been eyeing the property for years, but maintained my cramped apartment facade for Kendra's benefit. Now I could finally live honestly. The Veteran Investment Foundation launched with remarkable success. We offered free financial literacy courses and small starter investments for service members. Terrell proved to be an excellent program director, translating complex investment concepts into language that resonated with military personnel. Rita showed up at my office unexpectedly one afternoon in late summer. She looked uncomfortable standing in the doorway of my new foundation headquarters. I didn't know, she said without preamble, about what Kendra was trying to do. I swear I had no idea. I believed her. Rita had always been straightforward, unlike her sister. It's over now. She nodded, relieved. Kendra's facing consequences beyond the divorce. The Bar Association is investigating Patricia for ethics violations. Reed's reputation is ruined. I wasn't surprised. Actions had consequences. What's Kendra doing now? Working at the same admin job, living with a roommate. Rita hesitated. She knows she messed up badly. I felt no satisfaction hearing about Kendra's struggles. The whole situation was unnecessary. If she'd been honest from the beginning, I would have offered a fair settlement. After Rita left, I called Desmond at Charles Schwab. My portfolio had grown another 15% since the divorce. The cryptocurrency market was booming again. Any more unauthorized access attempts? I asked, though I already knew the answer. None, Desmond confirmed. Your accounts are completely secure now. That evening, I drove my new Tesla to a dinner meeting with potential investors for the foundation. No more pretending to be broke, no more hiding my success. The 2006 Honda Civic was donated to a veteran transitioning to civilian life. As I parked in front of the restaurant, I thought about how differently things might have gone if Kendra had simply asked about our finances. Instead of scheming behind my back, we might have reached an amicable settlement. She might have received a fair portion of my wealth. Instead, her greed and dishonesty had cost her everything. The irony wasn't lost on me. By trying to uncover my secret fortune through deception, she'd ensured she would never see a penny of it. I walked into the restaurant as myself for the first time in years. Not the struggling veteran, not the unemployable ex-soldier, but the successful investor I had become. It felt like finally coming home.